All right, lesson 8.8, working backwards with circles. We're going to be talking about area and circumference again. Just to remind you, the formulas for area and circumference are up here on the top, so you can see those. There we go. We are going to be working with circles. We are going to be using pi, and remember, we're going to use pi as 3.14 for our purposes. So we're going to work backwards here today. We're going to find the radius and the diameter. So we're going to start off, our area is equal to pi r squared. We know our area is 100 pi. So this is equal to pi, and we're finding the radius. So we're going to leave that side right there. I'm going to go ahead and divide by pi over here because it kind of works like an x, but it's really the same thing as still dividing by a number. Over here, 100 pi divided by pi, your pi's are going to cancel, leaving you with 100 is equal to r squared. To undo the squared, we take the square root, and the square root of 100 is 10, which is equal to r. So our radius units here were feet squared, so our radius would just be 10 feet. And that lets me know that my diameter is going to be double that, coming in at 20 feet then. For this one, area equals pi r squared. And we know our area is 625 pi. So equals pi r squared. I'm going to divide by pi on both sides again, which will cancel those out. So I get 625 is equal to r squared. Taking the square root of 625, that will give me 25 is equal to r squared, or just r, excuse me. My radius then, units here were inches squared for our area, so our radius would just be in inches. If we know the radius, we double it, and that gives us a diameter of 50 inches. For the next one, you'll notice we actually have a decimal answer on this one. We don't have our answer in terms of pi, so we're going to have to do a little something different here. We're going to plug in our area as 153.86, and instead of leaving pi in the problem, I'm going to actually rewrite it as 3.14 r squared, just because we actually have a decimal this time. Notice in all these we had the pi in our answer. So similarly, we're dividing by pi, or 3.14, so I'm going to do that on both sides. So 153.86 divided by 3.14 will give me 49 is equal to r squared. Taking the square root of both sides, 7 is equal to r, and our units up here were yards squared, so our radius is yards, and double that up to get your diameter, so that would come in at 14 yards as well. For your next example, given the area, we're going to find the circumference here. So in order to do this, we are going to work backwards. We're going to find the radius, and then we'll use the radius in our circumference formula. So area equals pi r squared. Notice in my area here that I have pi in the answer, so I'm just going to leave the right side as pi instead of changing it over to a decimal. So I'm going to divide by pi on both sides. Those will cancel out. 25 is equal to r squared. Taking the square root, 5 is my radius. So now to use that, I want circumference is 2 pi r. So I'm going to go ahead, my circumference is equal to 2 times pi times 5. And that'll give me 10 pi, which is approximately 31.4 if I'm changing it to a decimal. My units here were yards squared for area, so my radius would have been yards. So my circumference is just yards. In example 5, we're going to start off area equals pi r squared. Our area is 225 pi equals pi r squared. Again, the pi was in my answer, so I'm going to leave pi over here. Dividing through by pi on both sides, I get 225 is equal to r squared. So I take the square root, and I get 15 is equal to r. I now need to find circumference. So 2 pi r is my formula. 2 times pi times 15. So for circumference, this one's going to be 30 pi if I'm leaving it in terms of pi. And if I change it over to a decimal, this will be about 94.2. Units here were inches. So for circumference, this is just linear, so it is going to be inches as well. In example number 6, starting on page 20, we're given circumference, and we're going to work backwards to find area. So same thing, from the circumference, we are going to, identify our radius then. So once we do that, we'll find the circumference, we will identify our radius, and then we'll use that to go back and find our area. So circumference formula is 2 pi r. Circumference here is 40 pi, so because it has pi in the answer, I'm I'm going to leave pi on the right-hand side. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by 2 pi here on both sides. I don't know why I drew that big line. I just want to do that to each side. I'm going to divide by 2 pi. And that'll cancel out here, leaving me with r. Pi's cancel out, and then 40 divided by 2 is going to give me 20. So my radius here is 20. With that, I can say area is equal to pi r squared. So if the radius is 20, I'm going to have area is equal to pi times 20 squared. So that's going to give me 400 pi. And I want to go ahead and change that over, multiplying by 3.14 so that I get a decimal answer, which will give me 1,256 inches squared then. Noticing my circumference gave me my label. For example number 7, circumference is equal to 2 pi r. Notice here that we do have a decimal answer, so we're going to have 37.68. Instead of leaving pi, I'm going to actually do 2 times 3.14, which will give me 6.28 times r. To get r by itself, I'm going to divide by 6.28. And doing that, I get 6 over here is equal to my radius. So now I'm going to go find my area. Pi r squared is my formula, and the radius is 6. So leaving this in terms of pi, 6 squared is 36 pi. And I want to go ahead and change that over to decimal form as well, just like we did before, and we get 113.04. Units here were feet, so when I find area, it's going to be feet squared then in example number 7. And that is it for your lesson on working backwards with circles.